Hey guys, thanks for tuning into Mass's World this week. Just a few things before we get started. First, if you like this podcast, please subscribe and give it a 5-star rating wherever you get your podcasts. Second, if you'd like to give to the show, please click on the Support This Podcast button on the podcast page. If you want to follow my day-to-day life, my Twitter handle is @Massid14 and my Instagram handle is @MassWorld14. It's also in the show notes. Lastly, here's a message from our sponsors. Thanks for listening and enjoy the show. Have you ever thought about starting your own podcast? When I was trying to get this podcast off the ground, I had a lot of questions. How do I record an episode? How do I get my show into all the apps that people like to listen through? How do I make money from podcasting? The answer to every one of these questions is really simple. Anchor. Anchor is a one-stop shop for recording, hosting, and distributing your podcast. Best of all, it's 100% free and ridiculously easy to use. And now, Anchor can match you with great sponsors who want to advertise on your podcast. That means you can get paid to podcast right away. In fact, that's what I'm doing right now by reading this ad to you. So if you've always wanted to start a podcast and make money doing it, go to anchor.fm/start to join me in the diverse community of podcasters already using Anchor. That's anchor.fm/start. I can't wait to hear yours. Hi, welcome into this episode of Mass's World. Today I brought in a friend. His name's Devin McIlwain. And what we're going to talk about is what coaching and teaching is really like. I feel that it has this glamour to it, and we're just going to kind of shed some truth. There are some glamorous parts of it, but it is a lot of work. A lot of my friends, will tell me how lucky I am to have a job like this. And don't get me wrong, I am, but I don't think they understand what actually really goes into it. Like I said, I have my buddy here, Devin McIlwain. He coaches at Timber Creek High School. He's the JV head coach and the varsity assistant there. And just, Dev, introduce yourself, kind of your story, where you're at before coaching. Now you are coaching. How'd you get that job, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, so I'd probably say definitely didn't take the most traditional route to teaching and coaching compared to maybe some college students who earn their degree in that fashion with that goal in mind. I was, like you, a business major at Baylor University and started out of college working for a software company in downtown Dallas, doing some marketing campaign demand generation type stuff. Did that for about 15 months before I realized that, I really wanted to go try and get my teaching certificate where I could go out, and wasn't really 100% sure what I wanted to do at that point. I was obviously thinking football and basketball. I've since transitioned to basketball only, which is a good blessing. I spent my first 2 years of coaching at a small high school in East Texas. I was a football assistant there. Actually, my second year, I was essentially our assistant offensive coordinator, which is kind of interesting in its own right. But sort of had to go from that straight into basketball season. Definitely a challenge. Not to mention having to kind of adjust to teaching on top of that.
Yeah.
I had 3 subject preps that you would have to say. I taught 5 classes, 5 class periods, 3 different classes between world geography, economics, and government. Did that all concurrently. So between having to, one, adjust to teaching and kind of generate my own lesson plans and stuff with 3 subjects, and then also kind of contribute where I needed to in the football aspect, as well as try and build a basketball program essentially, was very, very challenging. Year 1 was basically I was just trying to keep my head above water. And then I got a bit more comfortable. Year 2, it was obviously a little bit better, just because the teaching part of it isn't quite as scary because you've done it before, and it's essentially repeats itself with just a little bit of refinement.
Right.
But now, I'm over at Timber Creek, which is your old school. just teaching one subject, prep, world geography, and JV head and varsity assistant over there.
Yeah, man. Yeah, thanks. A little bit more about you. Teaching, it kind of, like I said earlier, it looks really glamorous. So I want to kind of hit on what you thought it was going to be like when you were making that jump from your company, Lanyon, to actually coaching and teaching. And your transition, I feel like, was harder than most because, like you said, you were teaching 3 different subjects. I've never had to deal with that. I've only had to do the same subject of pre-AP and regular, which isn't hard to differentiate. So what did you think coaching and teaching was going to be like? Because I remember you came to me asking me, hey, what's it like? I was in it the year before you.
Yeah.
And, I know how I viewed it going into it. And I just want to hear someone else's perspective on that.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I'd probably say that, a lot of my motivation was just kind of not playing high school hero by any means, but just kind of trying to get that feeling of excitement and level of competitiveness in different aspects of my life. Post-college, don't really have a lot of those experiences. Those were kind of the most fulfilling in my mind. So I kind of sought out a way where I could create more of those. And I thought that career change could be a good avenue for that. I'm kind of, I guess, the point of view that we're trying to express is that it definitely is perceived as glamorous, I guess. When you look at,
except for the money.
Yeah, except for the money, of course. That's like a given. There's not a lot of opportunity there on that front. Sure. But I'm kind of like you, where I was thinking, man, this is so great. I'm gonna be able to, kind of have those experiences where I can, be around sports and, basically I won't have to sit behind a desk all day and, do things that seem meaningless, and I can focus on passions and stuff like that, and I think that to a degree that's absolutely right. But it, kind of like you said, and we'll dive deeper into it, I guess, it's very much a grind.
Yeah. I kind of thought it was going to be like basketball all day, and I understood that teaching was going to be involved. And I think we both take teaching very seriously. But when I was thinking about coaching and teaching, I thought doing it for when you don't get paid anything for the coaching stipend, you have to be a pretty good teacher because
Totally.
You are always. I don't know about actually I do know about Timber Creek, but at the Colony we have tons of cameras everywhere. Not that I would ever do nothing in class. I always try to provide some sort of value to the kids in that, but you've got to be on it. You've got to be a good teacher. You're going to be weeded out pretty quickly. And you and I talk about teaching strategies all the time and different ways to do stuff, which I think has been cool because I thought it was going to just be a lot more basketball. And, when I got in, I was like, man, I don't want to be the just, typical coach who you don't do anything. Everyone's had that teacher. So I really try and fight that and try to be a really good teacher. But I looked at it and I was like, it's going to be all coaching basketball 24/7. And I think it'd be an easy transition. What was the toughest transition to you? Because I think yours was much harder than mine. I think I am already anticipating your answer. But what was the toughest transition for you going from corporate life right into teaching?
I'd probably say just the time management part, in my mind, was way more difficult. And I think a lot of that just has to do with the fact that, it was a lot of things at one time, not only trying to prep during the off season, in terms of what am I going to, what type of coach am I going to be? What do I want to run? What kind of personnel am I looking at with my kids? I haven't even seen them in the gym yet. And trying to figure out that part of it. And then plus, having to coach football and contribute in that front, which is a total beast. I mean, and you're going from, and a lot people don't realize this. I mean, you're going from mid-July starting with football, and it's constant through November. And it's a lot of collaboration. It's a lot of time. It's a lot of time outside of practice. I mean,
7 days a week.
Yeah, essentially, yes. I was lucky. It was in a good situation where it was only 6 days a week, but definitely missed out on, the typical weekend activities of a young 20-something compared to, when I was in corporate life and stuff. But, I think that all of the things combined at one time, not only contributing to football, but, also planning for basketball, planning what I wanted to do, and then also transitioning to teaching 3 subjects. And it's not like, this was a very small school district. I was the only world geography teacher. I was the only government teacher. I was the only economics teacher. So I didn't have any type of lead. So I was basically trying to work through that entire transition of all these things combined at one time. And it was extremely stressful for a while there.
I bet. I mean, I teach one class, and, my goal, I was given kind of set of parameters by some teachers who really took care of me. But my goal is to try and improve lessons now, 3 or 4 a semester, and make the class more interactive. Or, I even gave my kids a feedback quiz of like how they wanted to learn, and they gave me, what they wanted to do. So I'm balancing out the class structure now to that percentage. So 4 to 5 days, we're going to do notes a specific way. The other day, they wanted me to lecture. So they didn't want lecturing every day. They wanted a lot of individual stuff. But with that comes some sort of accountability that I've got to hold them accountable to answering tough questions and stuff like that. So, I mean, like I said, the teaching part is the biggest burden for me.
Right.
And I can only imagine, because I only had one class and you had 3 different preps, and your range from freshman to senior.
Right.
I've only ever had freshmen. I've been doing this as year 4, and I've only ever had freshmen. You've had a lot more to that. I want to talk about something a little interesting. You went from being a head coach to an assistant.
Mm-hmm.
Just talk about the differences there. And I mean, you have a slightly different viewpoint than I do. We have worked now 1 year for the same guy who's a genius, quite frankly.
Right.
But yeah, just talk about a little bit from being thrust in as a head coach and then moving down to the assistant role at a bigger school, which still kind of feels like a step up, but kind of a step down. It's kind of a unique situation. So just hit on that a little bit.
Yeah. So kind of like you said, I was in a unique situation where, I was just getting started, and, basically through a connection, and essentially it was getting late in the process. It was early July and nobody wanted this job essentially. And this school district in East Texas basically said, "Hey, do you want to be a 24-year-old head coach?" And I was like, "Sure. Why not? It's awesome."
Yeah.
With really with ideas, but no definite thinking on, what I was getting myself into and everything and what kind of challenge it was going to be. And obviously I thought it was going to be a challenge, and, I had images of coming in and, doing things differently and basically bringing their program up from nothing and, making playoffs and stuff like that. So I had a lot of goals and basically dreams basically in terms of what that could look like. So that was a really unique situation. Year 1 was really wild because I was just basically trying to learn on the fly. I mean, and there's so many different things outside of just coaching scheme. Learning to deal with parents, learning to deal with kids outside of basketball, learning to create practice plans, learning to manage kids' time, learning how to break down film and all these different and paperwork and getting frees and all these different things that people don't really think about when it comes to coaching, that it's just it's administrative. You think that you're doing somewhat menial task in your job. There's some of that everywhere. And, I think that often gets overlooked. So yeah, and my second year was a lot better. I had obviously a much better understanding of personnel. I had a little bit of, a chance to reflect on the previous year and just kind of understand my group and what needs to happen well, because that first year we were 1-24. I mean, we were terrible. I mean, we lost, we were 0-6 in games decided by 2 or less points. So it was just kind of a grind, and there was just that general belief in every sport, because they went 0-10 in football, that same year that, they just couldn't win in anything. And it was just like part of the culture of that school. Year 2, football went better. Like they went 6-4, and we finished basically out of a tiebreaker. We lost out on a tiebreaker to make playoffs. So there was a little bit more belief in themselves coming in. We underperformed beginning of the year, and then kind of played well early on in district, and kind of lost some gas coming into the finish and missed out on playoffs by 1 game. But it was still a really good year. We were really close. Closest that we had been apparently in like 17 years of the past 17 years of the school, in terms of their basketball season and being close to playoffs and stuff. But so my goal the next year was, okay, let's take this to the next level. Let's get these guys to playoffs, especially moving down in classification. So that was my goal. And then, obviously you moved schools from Timber Creek to the Colony, and it was a step up for you. And, obviously had an opportunity to think if I wanted to move back to a bigger school, back to DFW, which is a place that I really, really like, and, people that I love and stuff, or, continue with the kind of foundation that, I'd been working on for the past 2 years. Ultimately decided obviously to take that step, and a lot of it was personal based. I was thinking from a career perspective, obviously, like this is good because I have an opportunity to learn and still, have my own team, get to make decisions, as any head coach would, but at the same time be able to learn under somebody. And that was something that was probably, I would say, more beneficial than me just figuring it out myself. And, that's something that I like to do, but at the same time, because I like to challenge myself a little bit in that regard, but at the same time, like just being around people who have had, 30 years of experience and these type of things and questions that, rattle my brain all the time. It's like a no-brainer for, those type of people. So it's really helpful just to kind of take that step back. But yeah, interesting case in that, I kind of took what seems like took a step back being a head coach at a small school and then going to be an assistant at a big school. But I think definitely for the better for my career.
Yeah, no, I think so too. I think that's really unique, and you do know what it takes to be a head coach. I still sit here and I kind of wonder, like, am I ready? Could I do it? And I'm content learning, being an assistant right now, but my ultimate goal is to be a head coach. So I sit there and I'm thinking, like, I don't know if I have what it takes. And that's kind of cool that you have a basis of how you did things before, and now you're going to be able to take some things that you're learning.
Yeah, and I definitely, and that's not to say that, like, I definitely didn't have what it took when I got that job. It was just sheer, fortuity, and it's like,
you're really good drinking out of a fire hose.
Yeah, exactly.
That's kind of your forte.
Yeah, that's something that I kind of like. It's kind of funny. Yeah, I'm not a big like planner or organizer in that regard. I just kind of like being able to have my back against the wall a little bit and be adaptable and stuff. And so, yeah.
Something I'm not the best at, but I'm trying to get more lenient on. Let's change this this podcast in a little more positive direction. There are some awesome aspects about being a coach. Mm-hmm. And what would you say is the most fun thing that you get to do day to day? And just being a coach, like, what do you enjoy about it? What are some just awesome things that you get to do?
I just think like talking to, like, from a professional standpoint in terms of what we do, talking to other professionals is like, you just kind of sit back and you're just like, okay, this is part of my life, instead of sitting back and talking about performance reports or spreadsheets and stuff, or, whatever a person may be doing. We're talking about, oh man, Duke looked great last night.
Did you see anything that you want to take from Duke?
Right.
Yeah.
How about the baseline out of bounds play that Buzz Williams ran last night to give Vautech a chance to tie? And that's sort of something that you kind of, if you have a little bit of perspective, you sit back and you're like, man, that's pretty cool, like, easily. And then obviously, like, a big one is being around kids who are trying to accomplish some of the things that that you sort of maybe went through as a kid, and you kind of want to impart knowledge, and you want to be a part of their success and everything, and that's obviously very, very rewarding as well.
Yeah, I think for me the most fun thing is like I get to be in shorts by 11:30 every day, and uh, on Fridays during the off season I play, and it's awesome.
Yeah,
and it's just that from a selfish perspective, like just being able to play and have a pickup game whenever I feel like it's awesome.
Oh yeah.
And from a kid's perspective, I think God made me to just like I'm built to love on 16 to 18-year-olds because they're old enough where they're starting to figure out a little bit what life is and just getting to have those conversations and see where they're at with some things, and just getting to dig in a little bit deeper about their lives. And because during the season we see these guys more than they see their families.
Yeah,
and quite frankly more than we see our families sometimes.
Right. Yeah.
And so to be able to pour in to them in a way like in that way is just amazing. And shout out to my wife, just because she makes it all happen. Because without her, I've told her many times, like if this is too much, you need to tell me, and I can find something else to do. But she's pretty adamant that she wants me coaching.
Yeah, I think kind of back to that point. I think any coach's wife will definitely. If you ask them kind of their point of view, they will bypass the glamour of it and just say sometimes it could be really hard,
No
definitely
doubt.
compared to, some other things. But, and that just kind of gives you an idea. And another thing, kind of like what you were saying, it's very, so like when you talk about like our good and bad, when you talk about our job compared to others, like our bad affects a lot when you think about it. Like maybe at another job, and I'm not saying like teaching is more fulfilling to than any other thing, because I'm not. But it's definitely impactful though. But if you look at our bad days affect children, at pivotal points of their life and pivotal points of their maturity, and I think that that's something that's really powerful, but it's a huge responsibility. And I think it goes way past just being around hoops or being around football or whatever sport you may coach. It's really it's a big responsibility.
No doubt, man. And it is a weighty job. And you said our bad days affect the kids, and I can't tell you how many times I've asked for forgiveness from the kids, where I've gotten frustrated with one of them and come back the next day and been like, hey man, I had a bad day and I took that out on you, and I need to ask for your forgiveness because that's not how I want to operate. And the kids looking at me like I'm crazy, but I think the way you phrase that is like our bad days can affect them, and I just think that's so true. Okay, so changing gears a little bit, let's just hear about a typical day in season for you. Just run me through the beginning to the end. And know it starts typically pretty early when you guys have morning practice.
Yeah, if we, sometimes because of gym space, if my group has to go early in the morning, we'll start at 6:30, so I'll be up there at like 6:15, and we'll go through basically 9 o'clock, and that'll be like our practice for the day.
And you've planned practice beforehand. You got to get down there, put the baskets down, so your kids can shoot.
There's still the administrative stuff. You don't really want to go through a practice and just kind of wing it. You want to seem prepared. I think it reflects well on the kids' part. Like they respond to that a little bit better if they think that you're prepared.
Right, and preparing in basketball, you can't be too far ahead when you prepare for it, simply because you don't know how your kids are going to play on Tuesday night. So your practice Wednesday has got to reflect what happened on Tuesday night, and It takes time to prepare a good practice, in my opinion. So let's say you practice from 6:30 to 9, you got there around 6, set up the gym, got the clock out, put the goals down, got the balls out. Kids are there.
Right.
Practice 9 a.m. What happens next?
Yeah, I got about a hot 15 minutes to change and make sure I'm good to go with all my copies and stuff, and go on to second period.
People are vicious about the copy machine, by the way.
That is very correct.
It is very intimidating.
I have a bad reputation in the athletic hallway about using all the copy paper.
Friday afternoons is when I've started going, so I don't have to see anybody.
Yeah, that's smart.
Yeah,
that's smart.
Anyways, keep going.
But yeah, I was going to say, second period's like 9:20 to 11, so you'll be in class teaching during that time, and kind of like you were saying earlier, again, teaching is not just. This was where I just had a super disconnect because I just learned differently from other people, and I'm totally fine like absorbing information just by listening to somebody or looking at something, and kids are just not that way. They need just other ways of learning. I think that's a big misconception, is that you just lecture and just basically spit out what you know and just expect the kids to do it, and that's how easy it is being a teacher, and it's just not.
It's not.
But anyway, yeah, second period, go through 11. Then I have a nice long conference period between 11 and about 1:15. Where I can go get lunch. In season, I'll probably use a lot of that time to do opponent scout, break down stats for my group, kind of be able to practice plan and see what kind of things I want to implement with my guys, see if I want to do any type of groupings for, competition stuff or, any type of shooting drills or anything like that. Because a lot has to go into that. You can't just say, I'm going to put this kid with this kid, this kid with this kid. Like you got to kind of think, okay, who am I going to group this kid with to get the most out of this specific kid? Because we need this kid to play better. Kind of thinking along those lines.
That's good.
But yeah, got that time to do that. Then about 1:15, go to fourth period, teach until 2:45. Then go to fifth period for me, which is golf. If I'm in basketball season, I'm not really expected to do anything with golf because they're always like going to the golf course or anything, unless I have to go work them out, which a lot of times I do. So I'll put them through a little bit of a workout, 3:45 hits, and the school day's over with. Now I'll go with varsity typically if it was that early morning session. If it's not an early morning session and my kids go from 8 to 9:05, then we'll have after school practice from 4 to 5:30. But if it's varsity, they'll typically probably start film 4:30, and then varsity practice typically. Before district, times can be a little bit longer. During district, it's a little bit ramped back, so just to give them a little bit more time to recover and everything, because district competition you're playing less guys sometimes, and that can be a little bit tough on the legs. So probably go 5 to 6:30, 5 to 6:45, or 5 to 7. Just to kind of depending on where you're at and basically how practice is going. A lot of times, that.
Oh yeah, so I mean that's an average day, and then so you're looking at around 13 hours.
Yeah.
For an average day. We're not even talking game days where we're not getting home till 10 or 11.
Yeah, definitely not.
And while the games are a blast.
Oh, totally. They make it all worth it.
For sure. And all this is fun. This is every day for 4 months.
Mm-hmm.
And while again not complaining about the grind, it is a grind and it does get monotonous, and there are a lot of administrative stuff that you have to do. Mm-hmm. On game days when you're driving the bus, you got to take your whole off period, then you got to go get the bus, then you got to drive the bus, and tons of paperwork that goes along with that. Go ahead.
And again, just the risk of being responsible of all of these lives while you're driving said bus.
Said bus, yes. And it's just, there's just a lot more that meets the eye that goes into it that I just had no idea going into. If you had to tell go ahead.
I was going to say, then, you're not including like Saturdays, which before district, typically,
They're full-blown practices.
Yeah, you're practicing. So like typical Saturday for me, my guys will practice early and lift.
As in the JV.
Yeah, the JV will practice early and lift. Usually probably like 8 to 10 on the floor, and then 10 to 10:30 in the weight room, something like that. And then varsity will go 10:30 to 11 in the weight room, and then they'll practice for an hour and a half, something like that. And then you're maybe going to have a quick lunch, and then you're going to try and go scout tournaments. That's typically what Saturdays are like, kind of pre-district. There's always somebody that you can go watch.
So. No doubt. And then, you get that night off, and that Saturday night if no one's playing, and, Sunday you start your prep for your Tuesday game.
Yep.
And if you have an off night, if you're not playing on a Tuesday night, well, guess what? Everyone else is.
Yes.
So that's a night to go get a leg up, and you'll probably spread out with your coaches to go watch some different teams. So even when you have an off night said, it's not an off night. And again, not complaining. This is what it takes to be good.
Yeah. And that's a big difference, like between, I guess, small school and bigger school. There's just a higher expectation about what you need to do to kind of separate yourself. Because, when you're at the highest level, not everybody's going to have the same kids. And you need to do everything that you can in order to kind of make adjustments in terms of, we're we may not have, size, how are we going to find a way to win? You gotta figure that out. And that's a big part of it. So,
yeah. And then, even on game night, setting up the gym, you pull out the bleachers, your kids put out the chairs, you get the table ready, right. You get the music going, and it's a production. And
God forbid if the music doesn't work,
the kids freak out.
Yep.
And then, there's just there's always something that goes wrong.
Totally.
And you've got to be expectant of that. But boy, when the lights come on and you get to play in one of those Keller versus Timber Creek or the Little Elm, the Colony rivalries, it's just it's all worth it. It's buzzing.
Oh yeah.
Playoff games.
Your mind's going 1,000 miles an hour, and you're trying to calm yourself down and make sure that you're focused on what you need to be focused on. And, even before games, kind of like you said, you've got so many things that you have to be able to do, especially if you have a home game, that like you can't really decompress. Yeah. And just kind of think.
You just got to keep going.
Away games, you can, in my opinion.
Yeah, because you're not having to do all the administrative stuff to set up the gym. You're not having to deal with the referees.
You can just kind of sit back a little bit, decompress, and just kind of calm yourself, think about what you need to do that can, help your guys out. And, you can watch some of the sub-varsity games and see what they do. And, hey, maybe they have similar calls, or, you're very observant. You're not just like.
But it kind of goes back to what you're saying. There's not really an off switch. Mm-hmm. And you're just going and blowing at that point in the season. It's a fun grind, but it's definitely you feel the grind. So let me ask you this: we'll kind of wrap this thing up. If you were to tell someone that wants to enter this field and wants to be a coach, and you could give them one piece of advice, what would it be?
Use your resources. And by that, I mean other people who have been around longer than you. Don't think that you are going to have it 100% right, because I promise you won't. Be willing to kind of adapt to tips that people give you and just make things easier for yourself. You were really a big influence on me. My first year of teaching, it was your second year of teaching, I think. Yeah. So you kind of had ideas in terms of like how, like little things to make things easier on yourself from a time management standpoint, because that's a year one teacher and coach will find that to be the most challenging thing is time management. And I think that, just finding ways to make things a little bit easier on yourself, or just little time savers, and, making sure that you're productive during every second while you're at work, to where, you can decompress and not have to take work home as much. You will, you're always watching film or something on a weekend or a weeknight or something, kind of getting ready and everything. But, if anything, try and use as much time as possible while you're at work, to where you can kind of decompress when you get to the house and just kind of keep that work-life balance.
Yeah, no, mine kind of goes along with that. Mine would be adaptable, which is not a strong suit of mine.
Yeah.
Whether it's teaching or coaching in the classroom, you're gonna have lessons that just aren't very good, and you're gonna have stuff that the kids don't like. And it doesn't mean that you're a bad teacher for that day. It just means it didn't work out. Move on from it and just kind of roll with the punches and get through it and make it as fun as you can. In the coaching, be adaptable, because there's going to be a day you walk into the gym and the dance team is in there and y'all have miscommunication about who had the gym. And so where you feel like you're going to get 10 goals, so you have your groups broken up into twos at each different goal. You got to go into a 6-person gym. You got to change that. And you just kind of got to roll with some punches that just come your way. I'll give you something that happened yesterday, Friday. My head coach's daughter got in a car accident, and Coach Ryan was just like, "Hey, I'm not going to be there fourth period. I got to go take her car in and take care of that during my off period." Right. I said, "Hey, man, I got it," and just had to roll with it. And that's just kind of how it goes sometimes, and that's how work is sometimes. But it's just like anything else. Just roll with it. Don't expect everything to go perfect, because when you expect that, it's probably not going to go the way you planned.
Yeah, and kind of back to what you were saying, like be adaptable and like try and make it as fun as you can. I think you got to be willing to give kids a little bit. Oh. Like you cannot walk into any setting and just be a hard A and just, act like you're just like everything's gonna run your way. I mean, you can absolutely have processes and things put in place to where you can, stay in control and keep it less chaotic. But at the same time, like sometimes you got to give the kids a little bit, it just kind of for themselves, because they're kids who are going through a lot of crazy pivotal stuff in their life. And I'd probably say that, just giving them a little bit, like, let them watch a video while they're working on something, in basketball, let them listen to music while going through layup lines or something like that.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I totally agree. You gotta give kids a little bit. What I do is I call it a tech break, and it actually works more efficiently just for my class, but it gives them 10 minutes. I try and go, we do block scheduling, so we have an hour and a half classes. So I try to go 40 minutes on, a 10-minute break, and then 40 more minutes on.
Yeah.
And that 10-minute break, like I can't sit still for 90 minutes. I can barely do it for 20. So it's hard to expect our kids to do that.
Right.
And if there's a Friday that we're a little bit ahead, and there's 20 minutes left in class, sometimes I'm just like, hey, y'all have it, and just giving them the little wins, I think, matters. I did a bracket challenge, which I've moved into first. If they beat me, they get a homework pass, and no one is beating me right now. So go Hoos, go Virginia. But anyways, I think this conversation has been really cool. If you have questions, please reach out. You can reach out to me through social media, or through Devin through social media. But we appreciate you guys listening, and thanks. Have a good day.